I never thought answering my phone that Tuesday morning would change my life forever. Emily, I need help. My sister Sarah's voice cracked through the speaker, heavy with tears. Marcus is divorcing me. He's throwing me out. I have nowhere to go. My heart sank. Sarah had always been the golden child, the one who married rich, the one our parents praised endlessly while they questioned my choice to focus on my career. But now, hearing her broken voice, all those years of rivalry seemed insignificant. Of course you can stay with me, I heard myself say, already reaching for my spare key. I'm heading to a conference in Seattle for 2 weeks, but you can use my place until you get back on your feet. I should have known better. I should have remembered all the times she'd taken advantage of my kindness growing up. All the borrowed clothes that never came back, the money she'd forgotten to repay, the boyfriends she'd stolen just because she could. But she was family, and she was crying, and I couldn't say no. The next morning, I gave her the tour of my carefully curated home. I'd spent the last 5 years turning that Victorian townhouse into my sanctuary, each piece chosen with purpose, each room a reflection of my success as an architectural designer. The guest room is yours for as long as you need, I said, watching her eyes dart around the living room, lingering on my collection of vintage art pieces. Just please be careful with everything. Some of these items are irreplaceable. Sarah nodded, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. You're an angel, Emily. I don't know what I'd do without you. Something in her tone should have warned me, that slight edge beneath the gratitude, the way her eyes kept cataloging my possessions. But I was running late for my flight, and she looked so lost standing there in my foyer. There's food in the fridge, and I left emergency numbers on the kitchen counter, I said, wheeling my suitcase to the door. I'll be back in 2 weeks. Make yourself at home. Make yourself at home. Those words would come back to haunt me. The conference went well. I gave my presentation on sustainable urban design, networked with potential clients, and even won an award for my latest project. But throughout it all, something nagged at me. Sarah wasn't responding to my texts, which wasn't unusual. She'd always been terrible at keeping in touch unless she needed something. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling of unease. When my Uber pulled up to my house 2 weeks later, I knew immediately that something was wrong. The curtains were drawn, which I never did because I loved how the afternoon light filled the rooms. And there was a strange silence, an emptiness that seemed to seep through the walls. My hands trembled as I unlocked the door. The foyer was dark, but even in the shadows I could tell. Everything was gone. My antique console table, the art pieces I collected from my travels, the Persian rug that had once belonged to my grandmother, all vanished. I moved through the house in a daze, flipping on lights to reveal bare walls and empty spaces. The living room had been stripped clean, my custom sofa, my mid-century modern chairs, even the throw pillows I had made from vintage silk saris. The dining room was equally bare, my grandfather's mahogany table nowhere to be seen. My phone was in my hand before I even realized it, dialing Sarah's number. It went straight to voicemail. I called again, and again. Finally, I called our mother. "Oh, Emily," she said, her voice dripping with that familiar condescension. "Sarah told us all about your generous gift. It's about time you did something to help your sister, especially after her divorce. Though I must say, it was rather excessive." "Gift?" My voice came out as a whisper. "What gift?" "Why, your furniture, dear. All those lovely pieces you gave her to help her start over. She's already found a beautiful apartment and furnished it with everything. We're all so proud of you for finally thinking of someone besides yourself." The room spun as the truth hit me. Sarah hadn't just taken my things. She'd crafted a narrative where I'd given them to her. And of course our parents believed her. They always believed her. I hung up without responding and called the police. 2 officers arrived within the hour, but I could tell by their expressions they didn't take me seriously. "So you're saying your sister stole your furniture?" Officer Martinez asked, jotting notes in his little pad. "The same sister you gave a key to and allowed to stay in your home." "I didn't give her permission to take anything. I insisted. She was just supposed to stay in the guest room while I was away." "Ma'am, we've already spoken to your sister," his partner, Officer Chen, cut in. "She showed us texts from you offering her the furniture as a divorce gift. Said you told her to take whatever she needed to start over." "That's impossible," I said. "I never sent any such texts." They exchanged a look I knew too well, the one that said this was just another family dispute they couldn't be bothered with. But then I remembered something that made my heart race. The cameras, I said. I have security cameras. Both officers perked up. Security cameras? I nodded, pulling out my phone. After a break-in 2 years ago, I'd installed a sophisticated security system, including cameras in every room. They uploaded footage directly to cloud storage, which I could access from anywhere. Give me a minute, I said, logging into the security app. My hands shook as I pulled up the footage from the day after I left. There was Sarah, directing a moving crew, pointing out pieces to take. The audio was crystal clear. Yes, everything she was saying. My sister won't be back for 2 weeks, plenty of time to clear it all out. She has no idea. I watched as they systematically stripped my house, Sarah supervising with a smile on her face. She even took things from my bedroom, jewelry, designer bags, the vintage wedding dress I'd inherited from our grandmother. I'll need a copy of that footage, Officer Martinez said, his tone completely different now. All of it. For the next hour, I sat with them, downloading videos that documented Sarah's theft. They took detailed notes of everything that was taken, estimated values, and the moving company's information, visible on their uniforms. This is grand theft, Officer Chen said finally. We'll need to take an official statement, but with this evidence, we can move forward with charges. As they left, promising to follow up soon, I sank onto the stairs, the only place left to sit in my empty house. My phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. I hope you understand. After everything I've been through, I deserve this. Don't make it ugly. I stared at her message, feeling a strange calm settle over me. She thought she had won. Thought she had played me perfectly, just like she had our entire lives. But she had no idea what was coming. Opening my laptop, I began documenting everything. Every piece she had taken, every dollar value, every family story attached to the heirlooms she had stolen. Then I started making calls to my lawyer, to my insurance company, and finally, to every antique dealer and consignment shop in a 100-mile radius. If someone tries to sell any of these pieces, I told them, emailing my detailed list, they're stolen property. Here's the police report number. By midnight, my plan was in motion. Sarah had always relied on my silence, my unwillingness to rock the boat. She thought she knew me, thought she could manipulate me like she always had. But she had made one crucial mistake. She had underestimated exactly how much I had changed. I pulled up the footage again, watching her direct the movers with such casual entitlement. Every piece they carried out represented years of my hard work, my savings, my carefully curated life. But as I watched, I realized something. She hadn't just stolen my furniture. She had given me something invaluable in return. She had given me the power to finally stop her. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Sarah. Mom says you're upset. Don't be dramatic. What's done is done. I didn't respond. Instead, I forwarded the security footage to Officer Martinez, copied my lawyer, and then did something I should have done years ago. I blocked Sarah's number. Let her think she had won. Let her set up my furniture in her new apartment, show it off to our parents, bask in her perceived victory. She had no idea that every piece she had taken was like a breadcrumb leading straight back to her door. As I curled up on the floor of my empty bedroom that night, I didn't feel anger anymore. I felt something else, something stronger. For the first time in our relationship, I held all the cards, and I was going to play them perfectly. The game wasn't over. It was just beginning. The next morning, I woke up with a purpose. My empty house felt less like a violation and more like a blank canvas. Sarah had taken my furniture, but she hadn't taken my strength. As I made coffee in my stripped-down kitchen, using the one mug she deemed not worth stealing, my phone rang. It was Officer Martinez. Ms. Anderson, we've located the moving company from your security footage, he said. Triple M Movers. They've confirmed your sister hired them, paid in cash, and claimed she had full authority to remove the items. I took a sip of coffee, my hands steady. Do they have a delivery address? Better than that, he replied. They have their own security cameras on their trucks, standard policy. The footage shows your sister directing them to 3 different locations, a storage unit, an apartment building, and an antique dealer on Madison Avenue. My heart skipped. Sarah hadn't just taken my things. She was already trying to sell some of them. The antique dealer, I said. Can you tell me which one? Hartford and Sons. We're heading there now with a warrant. Would you be able to come identify any items they might have? I was already grabbing my keys. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Hartford and Sons was exactly the kind of high-end antique dealer my sister would choose. Exclusive, expensive, and discreet. As I walked in with Officer Martinez, I saw my grandmother's Tiffany lamp displayed prominently in the window. The price tag made me catch my breath. $45,000. The owner, a silver-haired man in an impeccable suit, turned pale when Officer Martinez showed him the warrant. The young lady who brought these items and had proper documentation, he protested. Bills of sale, inheritance papers. Forged, I cut in. And I can prove it. Over the next hour, I identified 17 pieces Sarah had tried to sell. My antique French armoire. My collection of Art Nouveau vases, even the vintage Cartier clock I'd bought at auction last year. The total value, over $200,000. She brought these in yesterday, the owner admitted, showing us the paperwork. Said she'd inherited them from her grandmother. I pulled out my phone and showed him photos of my house from before, each piece clearly visible. These were stolen from my home 2 days ago. I have security footage of the theft. As the officers began cataloging everything, my phone buzzed with a text from our mother. Sarah's crying. How could you involve the police? This is a family matter. I ignored it. Instead, I forwarded her the security footage of Sarah selling my grandmother's treasured possessions. Let her explain that to the family. The storage unit was next. The manager took one look at the warrant and led us to Unit 457. When he lifted the door, I felt my breath catch. There was my life, neatly stacked and labeled. Sarah had organized everything perfectly, probably planning to sell it piece by piece. We'll need detailed photographs of everything, Officer Martinez said, but I was barely listening. Something had caught my eye. A familiar blue leather book tucked between 2 boxes. My hands trembled as I pulled it out. It was my diary from high school, the one where I documented every manipulation, every lie, every theft Sarah had committed over the years. I thought it lost in our last move, but here it was, preserved like a time capsule of her deceit. Would you like to add this to the evidence? Officer Martinez asked, watching me flip through the pages. I shook my head, tucking the diary into my bag. No, this is personal, but I think I know exactly what to do with it. Back at my empty house, I sat down to make a list. Sarah had taken my furniture, my art, my family heirlooms. But she had overlooked something crucial, my connections. As one of the city's top architectural designers, I had built relationships with every high-end dealer, every auction house, every gallery in town. I picked up my phone and started making calls. Hello, James. It's Emily Anderson. Remember those pieces you wanted for your showroom? I think I know where to find them. Victoria, that Art Deco collection you've been asking about. I have some interesting news. One by one, I contacted everyone who had ever expressed interest in my carefully curated collection. Each call added another piece to my puzzle, another trap in my web. By sunset, my plan was in motion. Every dealer in the city knew my pieces were stolen. Every auction house had been notified. Every consignment shop was on alert. Sarah's market had just dried up completely. But I wasn't done. Opening my laptop, I pulled up the video footage again, this time focusing on something specific, the papers Sarah had been holding while directing the movers. Zooming in, I could just make out a logo, Lux Living Realty. A quick search confirmed my suspicion. Sarah hadn't just taken my furniture, she used it to stage her new luxury apartment, probably planning to document everything for her social media empire. She'd always been obsessed with appearances, with showing off her perfect life to her followers. I smiled, opening my own social media accounts. Sarah wasn't the only one who knew how to tell a story. My phone buzzed again. Another text from our mother. Sarah says you're trying to ruin her. She just got divorced. Hasn't she suffered enough? I started typing, then stopped. Instead, I forwarded her the security footage of Sarah at the antique dealer, trying to sell our grandmother's precious heirlooms. Ask her about this, I wrote. Ask her why she's selling grandma's things if this was all just about furnishing her apartment. Minutes later, my phone exploded with notifications. Sarah had posted a tearful Instagram story about family betrayal, about sisters turning against sisters in times of need. Her followers were flooding her comments with support, condemning the unnamed sister who would kick someone while they were down. Perfect. I opened my own Instagram, created a new highlight reel titled Family Matters, and posted the first clip from my security footage. Sarah directing the movers, laughing as they carried out my grandmother's antique desk. Sometimes family can surprise you, I wrote. Watch until the end. Then I sat back and waited. The response was immediate. Sarah's followers, who had just been comforting her, started asking questions. The comments shifted from sympathy to shock as I posted more clips, each one showing her systematic theft of my home. By midnight, Sarah's perfectly curated social media presence was in shambles. Her followers were unfollowing in droves. Her sponsorship deals were under review. The influence she'd built her new life on was crumbling. My phone rang, Sarah's number, unblocked just long enough for me to decline the call. Seconds later, a text. Take those videos down now, you're ruining everything. I smiled, remembering all the times she had ruined things for me, all the times I had stayed quiet to keep the peace. Not anymore. No, Sarah, I wrote back. You did this to yourself. Then I blocked her number again and opened my diary. It was time to tell the whole story, not just the theft, but everything that had led to this moment, every manipulated situation, every stolen opportunity, every lie she had told to make herself look better at my expense. The truth was going to come out piece by piece, just like she had dismantled my home piece by piece. And this time, I wasn't going to be the one left with nothing. 3 days after my social media posts went viral, my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. It was the leasing office of the Wellington, one of the most exclusive apartment buildings in the city. Ms. Anderson, we're calling about your sister, Sarah Mitchell. She listed you as a reference for her lease application. I sat up straighter. Did she now? Yes, she's using your furniture to stage the model unit for her new influencer home tour series. But given recent developments, we have some concerns. I could hear what they weren't saying. Sarah had planned to use my stolen furniture to launch a new phase of her social media career, positioning herself as a luxury lifestyle expert. The irony would have been funny if it weren't so cruel. Everything in that apartment was stolen from my home, I said calmly. I have police reports and security footage to prove it. There was a long pause. We'll need to deal with this immediately. That afternoon, I watched from my car as Sarah was escorted from the Wellington, mascara streaming down her face as building security carried out box after box of my possessions. Her perfectly planned influencer dream was crumbling in front of her thousands of followers, many of whom had shown up to film her humiliation. My phone buzzed. A text from our father. Your mother is distraught. Come to dinner tonight. We need to fix this family. Fix this family. Like it was a simple thing, like Sarah hadn't spent years taking everything she wanted while her parents looked the other way. But maybe it was time to lay all the cards on the table. I'll be there, I replied, 7 p.m. Walking into my parents' house that evening felt like stepping back in time. Everything was exactly as it had always been. Mom's cherished crystal collection gleaming in a cabinet, Dad's golf trophies lined up on the mantel, and Sarah sitting at the dining table like she hadn't just committed grand theft. Emily, Mom rushed forward, hands fluttering. We can sort this out. There's no need for all this drama. I set my old diary on the table. You're right. Let's sort it out. Let's talk about everything. Sarah's face went pale as she recognized the blue leather cover. She knew what was in those pages. What's that? Dad asked, frowning. My high school diary, I said, opening to a marked page. Should I read the entry about how Sarah stole my college acceptance letter so I'd miss the enrollment deadline? Or maybe the one about how she borrowed my car and crashed it, then let me take the blame? Those are lies, Sarah snapped, but her voice trembled. Or we could watch the security footage again. I continued, pulling out my phone. See how you systematically stripped my house, sold our grandmother's heirlooms, all while planning to use my things to boost your social media career. That's enough. Mom cut in. Sarah's going through a divorce. She needed help starting over. Help? I laughed. She committed theft, fraud, and attempted to sell stolen property. That's not helping herself. That's criminal behavior. You're just jealous, Sarah tried, but the words sounded hollow even to her. You've always been jealous of my success. Success. I opened my phone to her social media accounts. Her follower count was plummeting, her sponsorship deals canceled, her carefully crafted image in tatters. Is that what you call this? Dad cleared his throat. What do you want, Emily? Finally, the right question. I want everything back. Every piece of furniture, every family heirloom, every item you took. And I want something else. I met Sarah's eyes across the table. I want you to tell them the truth. All of it. Sarah's lip quivered. I don't know what you're talking about. The money you borrowed from Dad's safe last year. That was you, not the housekeeper you blamed. The scratches on Mom's car. You, not the neighbor's kid. The missing family jewelry. Check her storage unit, Mom. I bet it's all there. Our parents turned to Sarah, seeing her clearly perhaps for the first time. Her perfect facade was cracking, tears streaking her expensive mascara. Is this true? Mom whispered. Sarah broke. Years of lies, manipulations, and carefully constructed deceptions came pouring out. Each confession hit our parents like physical blows, their golden child revealed as something else entirely. I just wanted. Sarah sobbed. I just wanted everything you had. No, I said quietly, you wanted everything I worked for. There's a difference. Standing up, I gathered my diary and phone. You have 48 hours to return everything, Sarah. Every single piece. After that, the police will file formal charges, and your next home makeover will be a prison cell. Emily, please, Mom reached for my arm. She's still your sister. I gently pulled away. No, she's someone who took advantage of family ties to steal what wasn't hers. And it's time she learned there are consequences. As I walked out of my parents' house, I felt lighter than I had in years. The truth was finally out, and with it, the weight of being the difficult sister, the one who never quite measured up to Sarah's perfection. My phone buzzed one last time, a message from the detective handling my case. Storage unit inventory complete. Everything accounted for. Ready to return items to your residence tomorrow morning. I smiled, thinking of my empty house. It would be full again soon, not just with furniture and art, but with something more valuable. The knowledge that I had finally stood up for myself, had finally shown my family who I really was. Sarah had taken everything, thinking she could get away with it like she always had. Instead, she had given me the push I needed to reclaim not just my possessions, but my power. 1 year later, I stood in my fully restored living room, each piece back in its rightful place. Morning light streamed through the windows, catching the crystals of my grandmother's restored Tiffany lamp. Everything looked the same, but everything was different. Sarah had returned every item, though not willingly. The police had supervised the entire process, documenting each piece as it came back. She'd face charges, but I'd agreed to a plea deal. No jail time in exchange for full restitution, mandatory therapy, and a restraining order. My phone buzzed with a text from Mom. Coming over for coffee. Our relationship had shifted too, transformed by truths that could no longer be ignored. After Sarah's confessions, my parents had been forced to confront their own role in enabling her behavior. It hadn't been easy, but we were rebuilding, one careful conversation at a time. Come over. I texted back. I have news. Mom arrived 20 minutes later, carrying a small package. She looked different now, softer somehow, the rigid perfectionism that had dominated our family dynamic replaced by something more genuine. This arrived at our house, she said, handing me the package. It's from Sarah. I turned the small box over in my hands. After a moment's hesitation, I opened it. Inside was my old charm bracelet, the one Sarah had borrowed when we were teenagers and claimed to have lost. Attached was a note. Found this in my old jewelry box. It was wrong of me to take it. I'm sorry for this and everything else. I'm getting help now. Maybe someday you can forgive me. S. Mom watched me carefully. Are you okay? I fastened the bracelet around my wrist, each charm tinkling with memories. You know what? I am, but that's not my news. I handed her a glossy magazine. Look at page 35. She flipped to the page and gasped. There was my house, my carefully curated collection, featured in Architectural Digest. The article praised not just my design work, but my eye for antiques and art. My story of loss and reclamation had caught the editor's attention, turning my private trauma into professional triumph. They've asked me to write a regular column, I said, about finding beauty in rebuilding, about creating spaces that tell our true stories. Mom's eyes filled with tears. I'm so proud of you, Emily, not just for this, but for showing us all how to stand up for ourselves with grace. A knock at the door interrupted us. It was the delivery man with a large package. Inside was the advance copy of my book, Reclaimed. A story of home, loss, and finding your power. The dedication page read, "To those who lose everything and find themselves instead." Mom read it over my shoulder. "Sarah's in a treatment program," she said quietly. "Real therapy this time, not just for show. She's doing the work." I nodded, running my fingers over the book's cover. Good. That's what matters now, doing the work, facing the truth. Later that evening, after Mom left, I walked through my house, touching each piece that had been taken and returned. The furniture wasn't just furniture anymore. It was a testament to my strength, my unwillingness to let anyone steal my peace again. My phone buzzed with another text, this time from my publisher. Book pre-orders exceeding expectations. Time to schedule the tour. I smiled, looking around at my beautiful, hard-won home. A year ago, I'd stood in these empty rooms, feeling violated and powerless. Now those same rooms were featured in magazines, the setting for a story of resilience that was inspiring others. Sarah had tried to take everything, but in doing so, she'd given me something invaluable. The push I needed to find my voice, to tell my story, to show others they could stand up and reclaim their power too. Opening my laptop, I began typing my response to the publisher. The cursor blinked on the screen, ready for the next chapter of my story. But this time, I was the one holding the pen, controlling the narrative, writing my own ending. My home was more than restored, it was transformed. And so was I. I glanced at the charm bracelet on my wrist, thinking of Sarah's note. Forgiveness might come someday, but for now, I had something better: strength, peace, and the unshakable knowledge that no one could ever make me feel small again. The light caught the crystals of the Tiffany lamp, sending rainbows dancing across the walls. In their reflection, I saw not just the end of one story, but the beginning of another. My story, the one I was finally ready to tell.